Hey there, baseball fans. My name is Mitch Gatzke, and this is the inaugural episode of Ducks on the Pod. This will be your weekly fix for baseball talk, both Major League and otherwise. Basically, anything baseball related, fair game here on the show. Now, before we get started, I need to ask a favor of you all. See, this show is going to feature a lot, probably a ton of talking from me. However, I don't want my voice to be the only one that's heard, and that is where you all come in. So please, pretty please, follow along on Twitter at DucksOnThePod, like our page on Facebook, subscribe to the show, give us a rating, preferably 5 stars if you feel that we've earned it. Spread the word to your baseball friends, because interacting with me and the other listeners is really going to be the best way that we can get into topics and have a lot of fun this season. And it means the world to me that you've taken the time to listen, so sincerely thank you very, very much. All right, now, that's about enough solicitation for now, I think. We've got a huge debut show for you with spring training games now in full swing and the World Baseball Classic just getting underway. So, let's take a look at this week's starting lineup. Leading off, the rule changes are official. 7 minor tweaks are coming to Major League Baseball in 2017. And baseball fans, the game we love is safe for now. We'll get into those changes and explain why we may not be able to say the same thing this time next year. In the all-important second spot, at long last, we have our first taste of meaningful baseball. Yes, by the time you hear this, the World Baseball Classic will be in full swing. We have a list of must-watch games and predictions for the first round of round-robin play. There's also a wacky rule that must be addressed. We'll get into that. Batting third, the All-NRI team. We've got a list of 9 intriguing non-roster invitees to keep an eye on during spring training. And cleaning up this week, the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. In London? It's more likely than you'd think. We'll share our thoughts on MLB's global expansion strategy. All right, baseball fans, let's play ball. Leading off this week, we might as well not delay it. Let's just get right into these rule changes. There's going to be a few of them. They're minor tweaks, though. I do want to stress that. There's nothing major that's happening here, I don't think. You know, Rob Manfred came out this winter, and he huffed and puffed, and he just about blew the house down, talking about everything that he wants to do, not to speed up the game. The game times are fine. A normal Major League Baseball game is shorter than an NFL game. The length of the game is not the issue. The problem is the pace of play, and that's the term that's being used over and over again. So a lot of these changes relate to basically eliminating the downtime in baseball, which there is a lot of. Even baseball fans like myself will agree to that. So the first change, the one that we talked about the most, it's gotten a lot of publicity here as it's become official. The adoption of the no-pitch intentional walk. From now on, the manager will just have to signal to the home plate umpire, and the batter will be given first base automatically. Now, when I first heard about this, I did not like it at all. But after thinking about it, I don't really care. This isn't going to make a big difference. This really, I do think, is going to have very little impact. There were only 932 intentional walks in 4,856 games last year. So really, you're not going to notice this. I really don't think you will. The guy will just get first. And sure, a few times we've seen it happen where a guy will go after a pitch that's supposed to be outside of the zone. Miguel Cabrera did it back when he was playing with the Marlins. Got a base hit out of it. But for the most part, guys just stand there with the bat on their shoulder, watch those go by, and then they trot on down to first. Very rarely do we see something happen where, the pitch gets away from the catcher and runners advance or run scores. It doesn't happen enough for me to be upset about the elimination of it. So really, Intentional walk, make it automatic. I don't care. Save us a little time. Now, the next change, this one I do like a lot more. I think it'll actually make somewhat of a difference in the game. Managers will now have a 30-second time limit to decide whether to challenge a play. And this is definitely going to speed up the game. The past 2 seasons, we've seen managers hang out on that top step of the dugout as their replay guys down in the cellar somewhere take a look at the play and decide if they want to challenge it. And the manager's awkwardly standing there with his hand up and, okay, we're good. No, never mind, we're good. We don't want to challenge. It was a total waste of time. It was very awkward to watch. And, yeah, that's a change that's definitely welcome in my book. Okay, this kind of goes along with the manager challenges thing. When a manager has exhausted his challenges for the game, the crew chief may invoke replay review for non-home run calls beginning in the 8th inning instead of the 7th. So basically, managers have to be maybe a little more conservative with those challenges that they're given. It's 1 challenge per game during the regular season. They get 2 in the postseason. But now, kind of like you see in football, in the last 2 minutes, everything is reviewed and they'll handle that. The same thing is happening in baseball. Used to happen in the 7th. Now it's not happening until the 8th. So the managers have to play that game of, how much does this really mean to me? Or do I want to save that for something that might happen in the 7th where I'm not covered? Continuing to move along, replay officials in the Replay Operations Center in New York will have 2 minutes to render a decision on a replay review. This, obviously, kudos. We don't need replays that take longer than 2 minutes. The good news is the average review time from last season was a record low 1 minute, 36 seconds. So really, most challenges don't take longer than 2 minutes anyway, but it's good to have a rule in there to make sure that they don't. Next up, teams may not, I found this one funny. Teams may not use any markers on the field as points of reference for fielders' defensive positioning. Your third baseman, if he's playing out in short right, can't be digging up the grass to mark where he's going to be coming back next inning or next 2-3 innings when these other lefty hitters come up. And apparently this became a thing last May when the Mets contacted Major League Baseball about a Dodgers request to make marks on the Citi Field grass to identify the desired positioning for their outfielders. There were already rules in place that said you can't leave things on the field. Well, now you can't alter the field to mark your position. And I'm wondering, first of all, how are they going to enforce this? Because guys play with the dirt, they play with the grass, Is the umpire going to be watching them closely? I don't think so. They're going to be looking for any blatant attempts to basically rip up the field. And I thought this was kind of funny. I don't think it'll come up that much. We can move on. Now, this one is very interesting. In addition to Rule 507, stipulates that a pitcher may not take a second step toward home plate with either foot or otherwise reset his pivot foot in his delivery of the pitch. This is the Carter Capps rule. And if you don't know who Carter Capps is, I can link a video to his delivery. Basically, he takes this little hop step. And there's been some controversy about it. He didn't pitch much last year. I think he was out actually the entire year. So it kind of went away. But when he burst onto the scene in 2015, a lot of opposing hitters were saying this is not fair. The way I look at it, it's not. Capps has a totally different delivery than we've ever seen, but I don't think it's a balk, really. When you really look at the rule, he's not resetting. He's just launching off the mound. So I don't think he'll end up being affected by this, but he is most definitely the reason why they reevaluated this rule and made an amendment to it. And lastly, the last rule where we can talk about, An amendment to Rule 503 requires base coaches to position themselves behind the line of the coach's box closest to home plate and the front line that runs parallel to the foul line prior to each pitch. So basically, when the ball is not in play, coaches got to be inside those boxes. And this has never been enforced. Base coaches have been allowed to wander the field as they see fit. Once the ball is in play, they can still do that. The guy coaching third can take a few steps down the line to make sure that guy rounding third can still see him. That's going to be all right. But while the pitcher's got the ball on the mound, those base coaches got to be inside the box. I'm all for it. It was just weird to see him kind of wandering around and just clean up the game. So those are the 7 rule changes. Again, nothing major, I don't think. Nothing to really get too upset about. And quite honestly, I don't think we'll even really notice any of these rule changes as the 2017 season plays out. However, some players are not happy about these changes and just the idea of changing the game in general. Brandon Moss, in particular, said, "I'm just very glad I will not be playing this game in 10 years. It won't be recognizable. It's going in a direction where it's not the same game. Every year, they try to keep thinking of some stupid new rule. It's getting old, real old." Now, Brandon Moss, obviously he's been a little hyperbolic by saying he won't recognize the game. You're still going to be able to recognize the game, baseball fans. I promise you that. In 10 years, you will still know that this is baseball. We'll still be playing on a diamond. I believe these are my thoughts, but sources tell me in 10 years, still be on a diamond. He's basically getting at the fact that baseball is now in a controversy where it's the old school versus the new school. And we see this a little bit with the Hall of Fame voting. There's a distinct difference between the old guard who don't believe that the steroids guys should get in and the new guard who say, just let them in. It happened. Let's forget about it. Let's move on. This is kind of the same thing. Rob Manfred realizes that the game needs to evolve, and he's being very proactive in doing that. Now, you can agree or disagree with how he's going about it, but he recognizes the need for change, and he's going out and he's trying to accomplish things that are going to benefit the game. If you're going to be one of those old school fans who's just going to resist every new rule, like Brandon Moss, and just be grumpy about it, then yeah, you're not going to like it. And really, when you look at, as I said, when you look at these new rules, nothing is really changing. However, apparently, under this new CBA, Rob Manfred has the unilateral power to implement some of these changes that he's been talking about before the 2018 season. Now, I don't know how this hasn't been, I haven't heard of this. This is brand new to me, that Rob Manfred basically can do whatever he wants heading into the 2018 season as far as rule changes go. I don't think that he will, because the pushback that he'll get from the players will be incredible. They're not going to let him totally change the game around on them. That's not going to happen. But as far as a pitch clock is concerned, as far as possibly raising the strike zone, which was talked about earlier, limiting mound visits, limiting the amount of relievers you can have on your roster, these are all things that could be implemented by Rob Manfred next year without approval of the Major League Baseball Players Association. That's a scary thing for me, because even though I really don't think it's going to happen, just the fact that he can do it scares me. There is a chance that he does. I don't think it will happen, but there's a chance that it does. Today I just read something about Major League Baseball being open to shortening the commercial breaks as a way to pick up on the pace of play and speed things up here. That's simply not going to happen. They can float that idea. They can say that they're open to it, but the fact of the matter is the money that goes into broadcasting rights, both nationally on ESPN, Fox, TBS, and regionally, all your local Fox sports stations, all the different local sports stations that cover baseball for the respective teams. There's so much money that goes into that. The contracts expire at different times. It's just not going to happen. Just not going to happen. When you talk about shortening commercial breaks, yeah, it's a great idea. There are times where you're just kind of sitting there thinking, well, we're really only waiting on the TV timeout. But unfortunately, there's just too much money. Too much would have to happen for that to be a real possibility. I just don't see it happening. In conclusion, baseball fans, as I said, the game that we love is safe for now. We are going to have to be cognizant of what Rob Manfred wants to do in the offseason. We're going to have to watch him this season as it plays out, and he decides where he wants to go with this, how bullish he wants to be on these changes. Again, I don't think it'll happen, but it could, and that scares me. All right, baseball fans, who else got up at 4:30 in the morning to watch Israel versus Korea? No, I didn't think so. But I did, because I'm a sick individual who actually enjoys watching an entire baseball game before I go into work. So, if you'd like to join in or maybe catch up with the action from Groups A and B, I will be live tweeting those games. Basically, those two groups are being hosted halfway around the world, and they feature a lot of the lower-end teams in the tournament. So I'm not expecting you to really tune in, but it'd be fun if you would with me, because it's pretty lonely at 5 in the morning when nobody's on Twitter. Anyway, if you weren't ready for the tournament to start, I've got you covered. Got the full bracket, full rosters, full schedule, a couple of links to articles, one about prospects to watch, the other about what to watch for in general. And I've got a little something for you myself, because I have some games to watch in Groups C and D, and I hope you don't have anything planned this weekend, because we've got a trio of must-watch doubleheaders on the docket. Please be advised, all times are Eastern. On Friday night at 6 p.m., we've got Colombia versus the United States. And if you're not watching this, then I'm not really sure that we can be friends, because this next generation U.S. roster is loaded with top talent, and this will be our first look at it. And Colombia, meanwhile, will be deploying either Braves ace Julio Teheran or the best unknown pitcher in the game, Jose Quintana. No matter who's on the mound, you got to tune in for that one. After that, we've got Venezuela versus Puerto Rico at 9 p.m., and there's really no reason to get up off the couch when you can stay put for this showdown. Both teams are stacked. Both countries breathe baseball, and I'm really not sure what else you could want. Saturday, it's the United States versus Dominican Republic at 6:30 p.m. This bad boy is sold out, which is an awesome achievement for the WBC and the host Miami Marlins. For my money, these two teams are the best in the tournament, and this is the first of possibly two matchups between the two. Then Puerto Rico versus Mexico at 9:30 p.m. Saturday night. Mexico is hosting Group C, and this is going to be their main event. With Venezuela looming, the pressure will be on, but Puerto Rico is hungry after losing the championship game in 2013. Sunday, it's Canada versus the United States at 7 p.m., which is a big deal, even if this isn't hockey. And maybe you miss seeing Ryan Dempster, Eric Gagne, and Justin Morneau play. Well, if so, you're in luck, because they are all on the Canadian roster, as is poor Freddie Freeman, who never seems to get much help from his supporting cast. After that, to round out the baseball weekend, We've got Mexico versus Venezuela at 10 p.m. Sunday night. Mexico could be playing for a spot in the second round. Venezuela will likely be playing for seeding in that second round. At least that's the way that I see it shaking out. Either way, these are two baseball-proud nations, and they are sure to put on a show. So which teams advance to the second round of round-robin play? Well, here's my best guess. In Group A, I like Korea and the Netherlands. For Group B, give me Japan and Cuba. As for Group C, I have to go with the United States and the Dominican Republic. As I said, I think those two are the class of the tournament. And over in Group D, it's real tough, but I will take Venezuela and Puerto Rico. And before we wrap this up about the World Baseball Classic, I have to mention this because there's a real wacky rule that was included in the World Baseball Classic here. Starting in the 11th, innings will begin with runners on first and second. Yeah, that's right. The guy who's due up next will still hit as normal, but the two guys before him in the order, or subs, guys can be subbed in for this, they will begin the inning on first and second. And this will be very interesting to watch if it happens. It almost did happen Monday morning between Israel and Korea. They finished the game in 10, but had they not, we would have actually seen this happen in the opener of the tournament. But this will be interesting to watch if it does happen because of a similar proposed Major League Baseball rule change that we heard about earlier this spring from Rob Manfred. He proposed that maybe extra innings should start with a runner on second. And I got to tell you, I hate this idea because now you're getting into actually changing the game. As Brandon Moss had said, we might not be able to recognize it. But in all seriousness, I do hate this idea. I do understand the desire to get the World Baseball Classic games, which are already a hindrance, in the books as quickly and painlessly as possible. So I understand the implementation of this rule in this case, but I think this thing just sets up as a disaster because I can see it happening already. A tense game suddenly ending on the first pitch in the bottom of the 11th with a broken bat Texas leaguer driving in a runner who was put on second just because. And it makes me sick. Walk-off solo homers are one thing. Guy earned it. He hit it over the fence. But if you got a guy who you just put out on second base because it was a rule and you soft serve a little liner over the second baseman's head and win the game, that's not baseball to me. I'm really hoping we don't have to see that happen. But then again, if it does, maybe the ridiculousness of this concept will become evident and we won't have to ever see it happen in Major League Baseball. We can only hope. But don't let the crazy rule keep you from enjoying this tournament. It really is special to see these guys play for their country. There's a whole lot of pride that goes into it. They may not be at their peak in terms of performance, but make no mistake, these guys are out there to win. They're giving it their all, and it's just very cool to watch. And it's meaningful baseball in March, so it doesn't get much better than that, does it? Every spring, we hear the term non-roster invitee. And these are the guys, normally they're veterans or prospects who are given a chance at the big league camp to show what they can do. And this list is not to say that I'm expecting anything from these guys or calling for them to succeed. It's simply that they have a chance to make an impact here. And there's a much bigger list on ESPN.com that I would recommend you checking out, much more in-depth. I've got 9 guys. We're going to start with Jose Adolis Garcia. He signed a minor league deal with the Cardinals recently, and this guy was the MVP in Cuba last year, put up some monster numbers, and I'm very intrigued to see how his game transitions to the major league level. We've seen a lot of guys recently come out of Cuba and make a direct impact on Major League Baseball. This guy seems like he's next in line. And it seems like there's a pretty good shot of him earning a spot as the Cardinals head north. Second guy, Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers. He could push Adrian Gonzalez out of town earlier than anticipated, really. The original plan seemed to be that they would let Gonzalez finish out his contract, which is up at the end of 2018, at which time Bellinger would simply step in, seamless transition, easy enough. And that's fine until the prospect starts to hit a little bit better than the guy that you got. They've got a lot of money tied up in Gonzalez, and he's not really a guy that you can just get rid of. Not sure that the market is too high on him right now. He struggled a little bit last year, and it's certainly opened the door for Bellinger. Look for him to possibly make the team out of camp as well. Desmond Jennings, we got a couple of veteran guys up here next. It's Desmond Jennings, outfielder for the Reds, and Ricky Weeks, outfielder for the Rays. Jennings has got speed, and the Reds are real bad, and Weeks has got pop, and the Rays are real bad. So I like both of their chances of getting a 25-man roster spot after spring. Back to the prospects, it's Gleyber Torres of the Yankees, and this is the big piece that came over from the Cubs in the deal for Aroldis Chapman last year. Torres won the Arizona Fall League MVP award, absolutely tore it up there. He's already making his mark in the spring, and he's just a fun guy to watch, very exciting player. I don't think he'll make the team. He shouldn't make the team, really. He's not ready yet, but you can tell that he's got the talent. He just needs to figure it out in terms of learning the daily grind that goes into it, but he's certainly got the skill. Very fun player to watch. Next is Eloy Jimenez. I believe that's how you say his name. Pardon me if I'm incorrect. But he's one of the Cubs' top prospects. He shredded A-ball last summer. Again, he won't make the team, but another guy to watch as he comes up. Then we go over to Rusney Castillo of the Red Sox, and this guy, I mean, man, in 2014, the Sox signed Castillo to a 7-year, $72.5 million deal. At the time, he was a highly coveted Cuban export, and this year he may well end up being the highest paid player in minor league baseball, because apparently he just can't piece it all together. He's clearly got the talent, the sheer raw skills to be a major league player, but the mental mistakes are piling up and they're killing his stock. From base running errors to questions about if he's really motivated enough. Apparently he's in John Farrell's doghouse and doesn't look like he's going to make the team. The Red Sox, frankly, don't have any room for him. Castillo's situation is very interesting. Speaking of very interesting, how about Josh Hamilton with the Rangers? This guy, I don't particularly like him, but it's gotten to the point where it's getting a little bit sad. I mean, he just can't stay healthy. I highly doubt he makes the team now. I highly doubt he'll be able to get back into the bigs at this point, really. He just can't stay on the field, and there's just too many options for teams to continually give a chance to Josh Hamilton. Next up, number 8, Chance Sisco of the Orioles. Somebody's got to take over for Matt Wieters, and this looks like the guy who's going to. At least he's my pick. We'll see how it plays out. And lastly, Chris Colabello of the Indians. He had a fantastic 2015 season, but he was injured most of 2016. And this was a strange signing when it first came across early in the winter. I thought it just very strange because the Indians don't have a need or an extra spot for him. And he was signed before Edwin Encarnacion, but Encarnacion's signing has certainly just about killed Colabello's chances of making the roster. But I'll bet he lands somewhere else and works his way up at some point this summer. Just unfortunate for Indians fans that it won't be for them, because I really do think this guy has something to offer if healthy. Now, those are my non-roster invitees to watch this spring. Once hot stove season is officially over, I'll have a list of the best moves from the winter, both trades and free agent acquisitions. Be on the lookout for that, but we still got a couple of weeks. In the meantime, keep your eye on those 9 guys in spring camp. Cleaning up this week, Major League Baseball's strategy for global expansion. Apparently they floated the idea of the Red Sox and the Yankees playing a series in London. And actually, I kind of like it. You know, when you think about it, there's a higher probability of brand expansion than the NFL's lackluster presentations. You know, they'll send the Jaguars over to play the Colts. Well, woohoo. I mean, I don't think any British person's going out to see those two teams. But if you send the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees over there, I think there's going to be some interest. When you think about it, much like the vast majority of English football fans in America, aligning with Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, Arsenal, the big teams, the Brits will surely be most interested in seeing the Yanks and the Bo Sox. We can't send the Tampa Bay Rays and the Oakland Athletics over there. Nobody's going to give a damn. But if you send the Yanks and the Bo Sox, there's a good chance that people are going to take a liking to that game because they've heard of the teams. They might go check it out. Now, the question is, who gives up the home dates? Because if 3 games aren't happening in the United States, if they're happening in London, the Yankees are either going to miss out on 3 home dates or the Red Sox are. I don't see either one of them being in favor of that, so I think that's the biggest obstacle is figuring out who misses the home games. And while you don't need a game in Latin America to grow the game, it would be a nice gesture, wouldn't it? Play a game in, I don't know, Mexico City or Caracas, Venezuela. Or, how about this? What about in Havana, Cuba? Interesting to think about. Again, it doesn't need to be done to grow the game. They're already baseball crazy down there, but it would be a nice gesture. It's something that Major League Baseball should consider. Rob Manfred, during the opener of the World Baseball Classic, talked about how it was a great chance for Major League Baseball to take some of its players abroad, out into the world, and let baseball fans see them who normally wouldn't get that chance. So why not do that with Major League teams? Well, the money's got to work out, of course. I hope they can figure it out. I think it would be great to see some games in Latin America, even Asia, in Japan, or, you know, have a game in Tokyo. I think they've done it before. It could be done again. London is very interesting. I don't think they care much for baseball, but like I said, send the Red Sox and the Yankees over there. You might drum up a little interest. You never know. All right, baseball fans, before I get out of here, few quick things. Again, my name is Mitch Gatzke. I'll be your host on Ducks on the Pod this season. Thanks so much for joining me today and every day. I do appreciate it. Please allow me to officially introduce myself. I'm a pitcher's duel loving, Mike Trout hating, rain delay waiting, war stat disregarding baseball fanatic. I prefer the National League set of rules and the added strategy in the senior circuit. I find it fascinating that more players are hitting more home runs than ever before, in spite of the fact that pitchers are more unhittable than ever. I firmly believe in the magical powers of a 2-2 count with 2 men out. I was in attendance for Armando Galarraga's perfect game that wasn't. I've been to 9 Major League ballparks, including Wrigley, Fenway, and the real Yankee Stadium, not that trophy case they play in now. Most important of all, I realized long ago that I love baseball far more than it will ever love me, but I refuse to let that or my affinity for my hometown team obstruct my enjoyment of the game. Now, Follow the show on Twitter at DucksOnThePod. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the show. Give us a rating. Please spread the word. This is going to be a great season, baseball fans, and I can't wait. Until next time, keep your glove on the dirt, your bat off your shoulder, and always keep your eye on the ball.